The words came out of little Lily's mouth so clearly, so perfectly, that I actually dropped the plate I was holding. It shattered across my kitchen floor, ceramic pieces scattering like my understanding of reality. "Aunt Rachel, why do you keep all those pills hidden in your bathroom cabinet?" My 5-year-old niece stood there in her yellow sundress, her brown eyes wide and knowing, speaking as fluently as any child her age. But Lily didn't speak. She couldn't speak. She'd been diagnosed as selectively mute 3 years ago, had never said a single word in her entire life. My sister Emma and her husband David had spent thousands on specialists, therapists, and treatments. We'd all learned sign language for her. We'd accepted that Lily lived in silence. Except now, 30 seconds after her parents had driven away for their weekend anniversary trip, Lily was talking. And the first thing she'd asked me about was the secret I'd been hiding for 6 months. The bottle of sleeping pills I'd been collecting, one prescription refill at a time, for a purpose I hadn't admitted even to myself. I stood frozen in my kitchen, broken ceramic at my feet, staring at this little girl who suddenly held my darkest secret in her small, speaking voice. "How are you talking?" Lily tilted her head, studying me with an expression far too wise for a 5-year-old. "I can always talk, Aunt Rachel. I just don't let Mommy and Daddy know. But you look so sad all the time, and I thought maybe if I talked to you, I could help." My legs felt weak. Nothing made sense. But as I looked into my niece's concerned face, I realized that whatever was happening in this impossible moment, it was about to change everything. My name is Rachel Morrison, and at 34 years old, I'd become an expert at pretending everything was fine. On the surface, my life looked successful. A marketing manager at a mid-sized firm, a nice apartment in the suburbs, an active social media presence showing brunch with friends and weekend hikes. But surfaces lie. The truth was that I'd been slowly disappearing into a darkness I couldn't name and didn't know how to fight. It had started 18 months ago when my engagement ended. Mark had been my person, or so I'd thought, until I'd discovered he'd been having an affair with his coworker for the better part of a year. The betrayal hadn't just broken my heart, it had shattered my sense of self. If someone who'd promised to love me could deceive me so completely, what did that say about my judgment, my worth, my ability to see reality clearly? I'd spiraled after that, though I'd hidden it well. Stopped returning calls from friends, started drinking wine alone most nights, let my apartment become cluttered with unfolded laundry and unwashed dishes, showed up to work but functioned on autopilot. And about 6 months ago, a thought had started whispering in the back of my mind, a dark thought that grew louder with each passing week. What if I just wasn't here anymore? What if I just stopped? I'd started collecting pills then, nothing obvious, nothing that would raise red flags, a prescription for sleeping medication refilled a bit too often, some anxiety medication from a doctor who didn't ask too many questions. I told myself I wasn't really planning anything, that I just wanted the option, the control of knowing I could end the pain if it became too much. But the bottle in my bathroom cabinet had grown fuller, and the darkness had grown heavier, and I'd been standing on the edge of something terrible without admitting it even to myself. My sister Emma was the only family I had left after our parents died in a car accident 7 years ago. She was 2 years older, had always been the responsible one, the one who had everything figured out. She'd married David right out of college, had Lily at 30, and built a picture-perfect life as a pediatric nurse while David worked in finance. Emma knew I'd been struggling after the breakup with Mark, but I'd downplayed it, assured her I was fine, kept her at a comfortable distance with vague texts and canceled plans. And then there was Lily, my niece, my goddaughter, the little girl I'd loved from the moment she was born. Lily had always been unusual, observant, thoughtful, with eyes that seemed to see more than they should, but she'd never spoken a word. Emma and David had noticed when she was 2 that she wasn't developing speech like other children. By 3, specialists had diagnosed her with selective mutism, though they couldn't pinpoint why. She understood everything, could communicate with gestures and eventually sign language, but words simply didn't come. Emma had spent countless hours in therapy sessions with Lily, trying everything. David had researched every possible treatment. They'd loved their daughter fiercely through her silence, adapting their entire world to meet her where she was. And I'd learned sign language too, spending every weekend with Lily, the one bright spot in my increasingly dark world. Those afternoons with my niece, coloring, playing pretend, watching her favorite cartoons, were the only times I felt something other than the crushing weight of depression. Emma had called me 3 days before, her voice bright with excitement. "Rachel, David surprised me with anniversary reservations at that inn upstate, the one we stayed at for our honeymoon. It's this weekend. Would you be able to watch Lily? I know it's last minute, but you're the only one she's really comfortable with." I'd almost said no. The thought of being responsible for another human being when I could barely take care of myself felt overwhelming. But Emma's hopeful voice, the first time I'd heard her sound genuinely happy in months, made me agree. "Of course," I told her, "we'll have a great time." So on Friday evening, Emma and David had pulled into my driveway, Lily's small overnight bag packed with her favorite stuffed rabbit, her blanket, and her picture communication cards. Emma had hugged me tight at the door. "Thank you so much for this. I know you've been going through a hard time, and I feel guilty even asking. But don't," I'd interrupted. "I'm fine, really. You two deserve this weekend. Lily and I will be great." David had crouched down to Lily's level, signing slowly. "Be good for Aunt Rachel. We'll be back Sunday afternoon. We love you." Lily had signed back, "I love you," and waved as they walked to the car. I'd watch them drive away, feeling the familiar numbness settle over me, and then turn to find Lily studying me with those impossibly perceptive eyes. "Just you and me, kiddo," I'd said, signing along with my words out of habit. "What do you want to do first? Color? Watch a movie?" That's when she'd spoken. Clearly. Perfectly. In a voice I'd never heard before, but somehow recognized as absolutely hers. "Aunt Rachel, why do you keep all those pills hidden in your bathroom cabinet?" The plate I'd been holding, I'd been about to make us sandwiches, crashed to the floor. For a full 30 seconds, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. Lily could talk. Lily was talking, and she just asked me about the one thing nobody in the world knew about. How? I stammered, still frozen in place. Lily walked carefully around the broken ceramic and took my hand, her small fingers wrapped around mine, warm and real and impossibly grounding. "I can talk, Aunt Rachel. I've always been able to talk. I just don't let Mommy and Daddy hear me because..." She paused and for a moment looked like a regular 5-year-old trying to find the right words. "Because when I talk, I know things I shouldn't know, and it scares people." My legs gave out then. I sank down to the floor, right there in the kitchen, surrounded by broken plate pieces. Lily sat down next to me, her little hand still holding mine. "You're not crazy," she said gently. "I really am talking, and I really do know about the pills. I've known for a while now. I can see the sad all around you, Aunt Rachel. It's like a dark cloud that follows you everywhere, and it's getting darker." Tears were streaming down my face. I didn't know if I was having a breakdown, if the stress and depression had finally snapped something in my brain, if I was hallucinating this whole impossible conversation. But Lily's hand and mine felt real. Her voice, soft and clear and filled with a wisdom that shouldn't exist in someone so young, felt real. "How?" I whispered. "How can you talk? Why don't Emma and David know?" Lily squeezed my hand. "Can we go sit on the couch? This floor is uncomfortable, and I'll tell you everything, I promise. But first, I need you to promise me something." "What?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Promise me you won't use those pills. Promise me you'll listen to my whole story before you make any decisions about anything. Can you promise me that?" The fact that a 5-year-old was asking me to promise not to kill myself should have been absurd. But in that moment, looking into Lily's ancient eyes, it felt like the most important promise I'd ever been asked to make. "I promise," I whispered. We moved to the living room, and I found myself sitting on the couch with my niece curled up next to me, about to hear an explanation for the impossible. I started talking when I was 1. Normal age, normal everything. But the things I said weren't normal. I would tell Mommy about her patients before she got to work. I would tell Daddy about phone calls before his phone rang. I knew when Grandma was going to call, what people were thinking, what was going to happen. She paused, picking at a thread on her dress. Mommy and Daddy got really scared. They took me to lots of doctors. The doctors said I was making things up, that I was a very imaginative child. But Mommy and Daddy knew I wasn't imagining. They knew I was really knowing things I shouldn't know. "So you stopped talking?" I asked, trying to process this. "I tried to," she said. "At first, I just stopped saying the scary stuff, but I could see it upset them whenever I talked at all, because they were always waiting for me to say something impossible. So when I was 2, I just stopped, completely. It was easier for everyone." My heart broke for her. "Lily, that's such a huge burden for such a little girl." "It's okay," she said, and she genuinely seemed to mean it. "I don't mind being quiet most of the time. I hear everything, I understand everything, and I can still tell people things through signs and pictures. But sometimes, when it's really important, I talk to people who need to hear me, people who won't tell Mommy and Daddy." "You've done this before?" She nodded. 3 times. Once, I talked to the neighbor lady who was going to drive her car after drinking too much wine. Once, I talked to my teacher when she was about to make a really bad decision about her boyfriend. And once, I talked to Grandpa's friend in the hospital before he passed away to tell him it was okay to let go. I was crying again, unable to help it. "And now you're talking to me." "Because you need me to," Lily said simply. "Because the darkness around you is so heavy, Aunt Rachel, and I can't just sit quietly and watch you disappear. You're too important. You matter too much." "I don't matter," I heard myself say, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I don't matter to anyone. Mark didn't love me. My friends have all moved on. I can't even do my job properly anymore. I'm just taking up space. The world wouldn't miss me if I was gone." Lily turned to me fully, her small hands on my cheeks, forcing me to look at her. "That's the darkness talking, not the truth. You matter to me. You matter to Mommy and Daddy. You matter to Mrs. Chen at the grocery store who told her daughter that the nice lady in apartment 3B always smiles at her and makes her feel seen. You matter to your coworker James who told his wife that you're the only one who really listened when his mom was sick. You matter because you're here, because you're you, because the world is better with you in it." "How?" I sobbed. "How can you know all this?" "I just know things," she said softly. "The same way I know that Mark leaving was the best thing that could happen to you, even though it doesn't feel that way. He was going to make you smaller and smaller until you forgot who you were. The same way I know that the job you think you're failing at, your boss just told HR yesterday that you're one of the most creative people on the team and he wants to promote you. The same way I know that if you hold on, if you let yourself heal, there's so much beautiful stuff coming for you." We sat together on that couch for hours. Lily talked, really talked, in a way she'd apparently never done with anyone except the few people she'd chosen to speak to over the years. She told me about what it was like to know things before they happened, to sense emotions and colors around people, to understand the weight of secrets people carried. "Your darkness isn't just about Mark," she said as the evening wore on. "It's older than that. It's about feeling like you're never enough, like you have to prove your worth to everyone all the time. It's about losing Mom and Dad and feeling like you lost your safe place in the world. Mark's betrayal just confirmed what you already believed about yourself, that you're not worth staying for." Her words cut through me because they were true, completely, devastatingly true. "How does a 5-year-old understand all this?" I asked. Lily shrugged. I don't know if it's because I'm 5 or in spite of being 5. I just know what I know. And I know that you're at a choice point, Aunt Rachel. The pills in your bathroom are a choice, but they're not the only choice. You can choose to stay, to fight, to let people help you. I don't know how to do that, I admitted. I don't know how to stop feeling this way. You start by telling someone the truth, Lily said. You start by not hiding anymore. You start by pouring those pills down the toilet and calling the phone number for the crisis center that you looked up 3 weeks ago but were too scared to dial. I stared at her. How do you... I know things, she reminded me gently, and I know you're strong enough to do this. I know because I can see all of you, not just the dark parts. I can see the you who stayed up all night with me when I was a baby and mommy was exhausted. The you who learned an entire language just to talk to me. The you who stopped to help that lady whose car broke down last month, even though you were late for work. The you who still waters the plant Mark gave you, even though you hate being reminded of him, because the plant didn't do anything wrong and deserves to live. That's who you really are, Aunt Rachel. That's the truth the darkness doesn't want you to remember. Something shifted in me then. Maybe it was the impossibility of the situation breaking through my numb depression. Maybe it was the pure, unconditional love in my niece's voice. Maybe it was finally hearing someone speak the truth I'd been too afraid to face. But I felt something crack open in my chest, the smallest sliver of light in all that darkness. I need help, I whispered. I really, really need help. I know. And that's the bravest thing you've said in months. Will you let me help you? Will you let other people help you too? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Yes, I don't want to die. I'm so scared, Lily. I'm so tired and so scared, but I don't want to die. Good, she said, hugging me tight, because you're going to live. You're going to get better, and you're going to be so glad you stayed. That night, Lily and I flushed every single pill down the toilet, all of them. She held my hand the entire time, and when the last one disappeared, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. We called the crisis hotline together. Lily sat next to me on the couch, her small body pressed against mine as I talked to a counselor named Patricia for nearly an hour. Patricia helped me make a plan, calling my doctor on Monday, finding a therapist who specialized in depression, telling Emma the truth, building a support system. By the time I hung up, it was past midnight. Lily was exhausted, her eyes drooping, but she'd stayed awake through everything. You did it, she said sleepily. You chose to stay. Because of you, I told her. You saved my life tonight, Lily. Literally saved my life. She smiled, that wise, ancient smile that didn't quite fit her 5-year-old face. I just reminded you of what was already true. You saved yourself by listening. I carried her to the guest room, tucked her into bed with her stuffed rabbit. Lily, I whispered as she was drifting off, will you ever tell Emma and David that you can talk? Maybe someday, she murmured, when they're ready to understand. But not yet. For now, this is just between us. Our secret. Is that okay? It's okay, I assured her. Thank you for trusting me with your voice. Thank you for trusting me with your life. And then she was asleep. The rest of the weekend was surprisingly normal. Lily went back to communicating through signs and gestures with her parents, and I followed her lead, both of us holding this impossible secret between us. We colored and watched movies and baked cookies, and every time I looked at her, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the miracle of that Friday night. On Monday, I called my doctor, started the process of really addressing my depression instead of hiding it. Called Emma and told her I'd been struggling, that I needed support. She came over immediately, held me while I cried, and promised we'd face it together. I found a therapist, started medication that actually helped, began the slow, hard work of healing. And through it all, I held on to what Lily had told me, that I mattered, that I was worth staying for, that beautiful things were coming if I could just hold on. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my apartment, now clean, organized, filled with light, watching Lily color at my coffee table. She's still mute to the rest of the world, still communicating through signs and gestures with her parents. But every few weeks, when Emma and David drop her off for our aunt-niece time, Lily and I talk. really talk. She tells me about what she sees and knows, and I tell her about my healing journey. We're both keeping each other's secrets, both trusting each other with the parts of ourselves the world doesn't understand. I'm not going to say I'm completely healed. Depression doesn't work that way. But I'm here. I'm fighting. I'm choosing life every single day. And on the days when the darkness creeps back in, I remember a 5-year-old girl who loved me enough to break her own silence, and I find the strength to keep going. Lily looks up at me, smiling, and signs, "I love you." I sign it back, and then quietly I whisper, "Thank you for saving my life." She grins, that wise, knowing grin, and whispers back, "Thank you for letting me." Sometimes the people who save us come in the smallest packages, speak in the quietest voices, and see us more clearly than anyone else ever could. Sometimes miracles look like impossible conversations with children who aren't supposed to be able to speak. And sometimes the choice to stay, to live, to heal, begins with someone simply telling you the truth. You matter, you're loved, and the world needs you here.